Thank you very much, Alexander, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar on achieving innovation and collaboration in outsourcing relationships. I want to start off by sharing some experiences and some frustrations that we see in the marketplace, and maybe you can relate to some of them if you've experienced with in outsourcing relationships. So, in outsourcing, sometimes we have a hangover after an outsourcing deal is signed. So we find, from Quint perspective, a couple of typical client frustrations that I wanted to just share with you, see if you recognize them. So here's one. Clients often say, you know, when I'm in the sales process, selection process of an outsourcing vendor, outsourcing external service provider, I get the A-team, the best people in the house. They present it to me, they sell it to me. And once I go into transition, I get the B-team, which is not quite as good as the people that sold it to me and were presented during the commercial process. But now I get the lesser people, and then in the end I'm stuck with a totally different team than was promised to me during the commercials. So that's a typical frustration that we hear. Another one regarding innovation that we'll be talking more about today is, you know, when customers ask for innovation at the vendor starts, you know, creating work orders. So when a customer says innovation, an external service provider hears additional revenue. So that's a typical frustration when it comes to innovation. Another thing is, you know, people talk about partnership a lot, especially in outsourcing relationships. And once the contract is signed, you find that people start pointing to the contract, especially external service providers have that habit. They might get squeezed out in the procurement process, and once the delivery starts, you know, all agility moves away and everything is strictly done through the contract. So these are some typical client frustrations that we see with regards to outsourcing and innovation in particular. Now, it's not all one-sided because as a sourcing advisor, we do engage with a lot of external service providers, and they have their frustrations. So if you talk to those, you'll say they'll tell you their typical frustrations are, on the one hand, clients want economies of scale, but on the other hand, they're going to customize so much that any scale is impossible. Everything is customized to a particular situation, or vice versa. They say they want customization, and then in the end they go for scale. So customers have a hard time kind of you know, explaining their requirements and demand. Another frustration we see from an external service provider perspective is during a procurement process, they get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed on the commercials, so they're only able to deliver, you know, a bronze level, so to speak, of services. And then once the contract is signed and they're squeezed out totally, suddenly the CIO, if it's an IT outsourcing, or the COO, if it's a BPO, expects platinum service. Now that is not a good basis for a collaboration or innovation. And the last point, specifically on innovation, you know, when at some point an external service provider does want to talk innovation, true business innovation, they usually don't get access to the right stakeholders. You know, they tell us, when we talk business innovation, the client lets me talk to the system administrator. You know, looking at these kind of frustrations, you know, oftentimes we're stuck in a situation where if you mix innovation with outsourcing, you get that, you know, that cocktail of inflated expectations and disappointments. It is not a nice cocktail to drink. So I just wanted to give that kind of situation setting to you, and we're going to be talking about these subjects and what to do about it in the next 20 to 30 minutes. So before I continue, you know, who am I to speak of outsourcing? Just wanted to give a brief introduction of myself. So my name is Alex Vandenberg, and I'm the global lead of the sourcing advisory practice of Quint Wellington Redwood. I'll introduce Quint in a minute. So I oversee all the deals that we make between customers and our clients and external service providers around the globe, whether it be Asia, Europe, USA, etc. I've done this for over 20 years. mostly in outsourcing. Obviously, this would include offshoring in a lot of the deals, but also in shared services, captive centers, integrations, and separations. We've seen a lot of those. I think, we do hundreds of deals per year. So that is my background. I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot, and definitely the team that reports to me, which is a global team in all continents, has seen a lot. So from that experience, we've set together this brief webinar to share some of the experiences and solutions with you, and get you thinking about, probably two of the toughest subjects when it comes to outsourcing, which is innovation and collaboration in an outsourcing relationship. So that's a short introduction about me. So let me just move on and give you a short introduction about Quint Wellington Redwood, and specifically our sourcing advisory practice, because then you know where we're coming from. So just briefly, Quint is a global management consulting firm. We're in the USA, we're in Europe, we're in Asia, and we do advice on IT and IT-related processes, and sourcing advice and demand supply governance are the core business of what we do. So, we've been proud to be named the world's best outsourcing advisor in 2014, and in 2015, this year again, we've won on 2 out of 3 main categories. So we're extremely proud to have been named again the world's best outsourcing advisor 2015. And I think a couple of things are important to know. We got the right accolades. We're independent. We're not a BPO or ITO service provider, and we typically work with customers in customer teams. If we work with you, we'll join your team, we'll lead your team, but we'll not take over your team, so to say. So we do business all around the globe, and here you'll find some logos that we do business with on this slide. These include American companies such as Transamerica, such as Fiat Chrysler, AIG, European companies as well, ING, as well as Asian companies are out there. So just wanted to give you that brief introduction and give you a feel of what kind of experience we're tapping into while making this webinar. So what I want you to take away from today's session is a couple of things. If you're a client in an offshore or outsourcing relationship, saying it should be cheaper is not enough. You need to know your situation. Where do you stand before an outsourcing deal, or where do you stand in a current outsourcing deal, and what are the strengths, weaknesses, and what should be improved? On the other hand, saying it should be better and faster is not enough either. These terms are too vague. Articulate your goals. What does quality mean to you? What kind of speed do you need? What kind of level of innovation do you need if that's about quality? Another thing is there's no one size fits all. You cannot have it always. You cannot have it cheap and extremely agile and extremely scaly, et cetera, et cetera. You need to consciously consider the sourcing model and what model fits your goals best. And the fourth and final thing is, you're not the first one to tackle this problem. You're not the first one to look at this problem. So it has been done before, and there are best practices out there that can be reused, and I'll share a couple of those with you today. So those will be the key takeaways, and again, as Alexander was mentioning, please use the Q&A box if you have any questions. At the end of the session, we'll go through your questions and answer them to the best of our abilities. So let me take a quick step back. If you look at the challenges in a digital economy that most organizations face today, number one, relentless pressure on cost and efficiency. We need to stay competitive. We need to lower our costs to stay competitive in this market. Another thing that we see is an incredibly fast commoditization of IT and back office services. Services that used to be unique to a company 5 years ago are totally commoditized right now. If you look at virtual servers, for instance, in the IT space, is something you can get as a commodity today. And 5 years ago, that was not possible yet. If you look at certain back office services in finance or HR, they're almost a utility that you can get on the marketplace today. And again, 5 years ago this was different. So this is happening and changing constantly, and in 5 years from now we'll have a different situation than we have today. A third point, which is extremely challenging in combination with the first point, is the constant need for agility and innovation. So on the one hand, we need that agility and innovation. On the other hand, we need to cut costs and improve efficiency. And those two are kind of, against each other. And the final thing, specifically in outsourcing relationships, any organization of a substantial size, definitely enterprises, will see an incredible increasing complexity in their vendor ecosystem. So there's no way to outsource all, for instance, IT to one vendor. There's no way to outsource all BPO to one vendor. So typically in outsourcing relationships, multi-vendor is the reality that we have to deal with. So these are the challenges that require organizations to think about: how do I get that innovation in my outsourcing relationship? How do I get the right level of collaboration there, even though there's a relentless pressure on cost and efficiency? So the first takeaway is know your situation and challenges. So depending on the situation in your organization, or better yet, once you look at an organization and you kind of create your service map, create an overview of what kind of services you bring, you'll find that certain domains need efficiency. Other domains at that moment might need more of transformation, and you have certain domains that you really want to do disruption. So let me give you a couple of examples. We find that in most, definitely enterprise organizations, we find that efficiency in the back office is one of the things that they seek. So back office need to be efficient. In some front offices, they need transformation. They need to be able to, move from the web to mobile, move from the mobile to hypermobile, et cetera, et cetera. And then in certain product development, they need to be disruptive. So what does that mean? Efficiency usually means lowering cost or flexibilizing cost in some way. Transformation usually means agility. I need to adapt my systems. I need to adapt my processes. And disruption, which is on the bottom side of the slide, means new markets. I'm creating my new market. I'm disrupting a market. I'm bringing a new product to market that's totally different from what is out there today. And when you look at, depending on the domain you're looking at in your organization, or maybe even depending on the type of organization that you work with, you need to make a choice which of these goals are most important to you, and put the focus on that. So once you do that, you'll find that the innovation that you need in either of these categories is different. For instance, if you look at efficiency, this is a type of innovation that we call sustainable innovation. So that means keep on doing what you did, but do it better, faster, cheaper. Usually, if you look at outsourcing, that means you'll do it within the current services, and usually you do it within your current outsourcing contract. So typically, as an example, you may have a BPO contract with a vendor, and you'll be discussing with the vendor how they can deliver the same services, the same BPO services, at a lower cost. For instance, by increasing automation or applying lean to the back office processes, etc. If you look at transformation, well, typical innovation that is needed there is called transformational innovation. So this is not about improving the current services. This is about adjusting the current services, changing the current services, creating a new kind of service that looks pretty much like the one we have today, but is different, customized, if you will. Typically, if you look at an outsourcing situation, this requires an addition to your contract. So you might have an existing run contract, you need some kind of statement of work or some addition in there. Now, if you want to disrupt, it's a different ballgame. Disruptive innovation means truly, totally new things that are unrelated to the current situation. New markets, this doesn't fit in your current outsourcing contract, you'll need a new one. You might even need a new vendor, but I'll elaborate more on that in a minute. So what kind of things should you look for? So in efficiency, if that is the focus of the domain you're looking at, for instance, you're looking at your back office, you need to look for economies of scale. So you need to look for a partner that can bring economies of scale. You'll look for a larger partner, a partner who's done this many times before. If you look at transformation, if that is your focus, you need a partner that understands you, understands the change you need to make. You're looking for customer intimacy. You're looking for somebody who knows your market, who knows your line of business. If you're looking for disruption, you need the best in class. This is not about money. This is about bringing, this is about top line, not bottom line, so to say. Another way to look at it is solutions. For instance, if you need a certain platform or application. In efficiency, stick to the standard solution. Why not adjust your back office processes to a standard solution that a service provider can offer? Because if you adapt to their standard solution, you can enjoy the benefits of scale that they bring, etc., etc. And I won't read out the whole slide to you, but for transformation and for disruption, you need to look at different kind of solutions. Looking at the operating model, especially in an outsourced situation, efficiency will probably move you towards the direction of an operating model with a shared team and probably some kind of offshore or nearshore modeling, because you're looking at standardized solutions the external service provider will probably be providing to other organizations as well, and you want to tap into that scale. So this is not about customer intimacy. This is not about disruption. This is about, you know, using best practices that are out there, using the standards that are out there at a low cost. So let me, if you look at transformation and disruption, you'll be looking at one team. In case of transformation, that team is assigned to you, to your organization only. If you look at disruption, you might even want that team to be exclusively for you, dedicated, because you're developing something so new that your competition should not be able to see that or have access to that for the next couple of months or years. Moving on, capabilities that you're looking for are different as well, depending on your starting point. So in efficiencies, you'll typically need technical capabilities. In transformation, you're looking for functional capabilities, and market expertise you're looking for in disruption. So what does that mean for your sourcing model? So you have your traditional outsourcing models where the client is the client and the external service provider is the vendor. So they're fine. You know, traditional outsourcing works fine, and it works best for the top two situations where you're in. If you need efficiency or transformation, traditional outsourcing is fine. We don't have to make it any more complicated than that. Moving on to other outsourcing models, joint ventures are possible for either disruption or efficiency. You know, if you want disruption, you might create a joint venture with that company that really adds the new content to your proposition. So, you know, share the gain, share the risk, and disrupt that market together. Joint ventures can also work between companies of a similar nature. For instance, a lot of insurance companies create joint ventures in Europe to basically create scale. Now, that is not to disrupt the market. That is definitely in the efficiency side of things. So be careful. Joint ventures are hard to implement. So if you're looking for efficiency, traditional outsourcing is probably the best way to go. And then you have staff augmentation, which is very easy to implement and which works fine for transformation, might even work for disruption, but be careful that you get the right best-in-class resources. Then you have the strategic partnership that everybody's talking about. Now, we've been in this business for 20 years plus, and we've seen strategic partnerships is a typical term that's been misused a lot. So we feel this works in market disruption. If you really want that new product in the market, why not create a strategic partnership, share the pain, share the gain, stick your neck out both from a client perspective as well as a external service provider perspective, create, you know, ownership together, et cetera, et cetera. If you're in efficiency, if you're in transformation, you probably do not need a strategic partnership. Why not keep it simple and if that's what you're looking for, go for traditional outsourcing and find the partner that fits the model as shown in the picture that I showed you before on page 14. So, looking at the time, we typically use our sourcing life cycle to make those decisions, and they are typically done in your sourcing strategy. So before you start an outsourcing relationship, or before you start a change in your outsourcing relationship, you need to think about your strategy and design and decide the best sourcing mix and the best goals you want to achieve. And that will bring you to the right operating model, the right partner, the right pricing model, etc., etc. So just to wrap this up, and then we'll go for the questions. Again, determine your situation. Where do you stand? What do you need? Articulate the goals that you want. You're looking for efficiency in this domain, you'll probably be pushed into another model than when you're looking for transformation. You're really looking for the disruptive model, don't go for traditional outsourcing. Seek that partnership, seek that joint venture, or if you want to keep it simple, go for staff augmentation, but get the very best people that are out there. You're looking for efficiency, no need to go into difficult strategic partnerships, but either go for traditional outsourcing with an external service provider, or consider a joint venture with an organization that is similar to yourself and wants to join forces there. So that's about the sourcing model as well, and reuse the experiences and best practices that are out there in the market. So we're almost out of time. I want to use the rest of the time that we have to answer some of your questions. So I'll just give the mic back to Alexander. And Alexander, I'm sure we got some questions. Please let me know what kind of questions we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the great presentation, Alex. We have a few questions here. I'll start off with this first one. It is, if you are already in an existing outsourcing contract, how do you begin the conversation on innovation?
That's a great question, because in an existing outsourcing relationship, the contract is there. You've got a certain duration on the contract, and you basically done the whole selection and procurement process. So how do you get innovation in that contract? So there's a couple of things that I think you need to realize. One is if you want to talk innovation, you got to make sure there's a win-win situation there, and the service provider, the external service provider, has something to win. So this could either be an extension of the contract, increase of spend, or you could say to him, if you help me with the innovation, we can make this a flagship project, and I will be there with you as a active reference in some of your next marketing events. So you'll find that external service providers are very willing and flexible to work with you if you can give them something in return, either one of those. So those are some examples of a way to motivate a service provider to start that conversation with you and to be a little bit more flexible in the current contract. Now, another way to do is so that's the carrot approach, I would say. Another way to do is a stick approach, and saying, look, we're unhappy with the situation we're in right now. We're thinking about reducing the scope of the outsourcing, or may even cancel the scope of the outsourcing because we feel the lack of innovation is there, and that might create some opportunity to have the discussion. However, whether you use the carrot and be an active referent or promise additional business, or whether you use the stick and kind of threaten with a reduction or closure of the contract, either way you have to do your homework as a client as well. So just briefly going back to one of the first slides I've shown you, that is page number 4 right there. So I hope you see it. So typically, if you look at the external service provider frustrations, if you talk innovation, then give them access to the right business stakeholders and give them the room to bring that innovation to the table, and make sure you know your position. Again, what is the type of innovation that you need? What do you expect from that innovation? Are you looking for sustainable innovation to increase efficiency? Are you looking for transformational innovation to transform some of your processes or systems? Or are you looking for disruptive innovation? So get the carrot, get the stick, and make sure that you're aligned on what you want and give them the right access to stakeholders. So that is, I think, how that should be covered. Do we have time for more questions, Alexander?
Yeah, we actually have another one that sort of connects to your first question there, if you want to answer it. It is, how do you measure innovation within a partnership?
Well, that's another excellent question. You know, innovation, again, it is a broad term. So it is, you know, it is hard to create an SLA on innovation. So again, I want to move back to page 10. That is on your screens right now. If you look at sustainable innovation, there are, you know, basic KPIs that you can kind of put on sustainable innovation that can be measured. And that could be the speed of a certain process that is increased by a percentage. That could be the the cost that goes down. That could be the easiness in which a process can be scaled up or scaled down. So that's a relatively easy domain to measure. And again, in this situation, it's very important that you articulate the fact that you're looking for sustainable innovation. You're not looking for anything transformative or disruptive. You're looking for those kind of innovations, and they can be measured. So transformational innovation is a little harder to measure. This is typically the pace in which changes can be done to certain systems. The hard part here is that you probably don't know in advance what the change is. So we find this a lot in agile situations where they work in Scrum teams with service providers, and typically they'll use the velocity, which is a term for productivity in agile projects, to measure the level of innovation there. The difficult part is it doesn't cover your functionality yet. It covers productivity of, for instance, a team of developers, but not whether the functionality is right. So for that area, you'll be looking at stuff like client satisfaction. So sustainable innovation is relatively easy to measure. Transformational innovation is a little harder. It depends on your situation, and probably some kind of client satisfaction needs to be in there. So new markets, again, that sounds like something that's really hard to measure because you never know what the market is. But actually, it's quite easy, we find, because you can use your pain and gain sharing, so to say. Share your gains, share your pains, and the measurement will be less needed there because, you know, if your new product takes off, both sides of the deal will benefit. If the new product does not take off, both sides of the deal, the client and the external service provider, will suffer. So those will be my starting points for a discussion like that. And at Quint, we have typical examples of KPIs and stuff that needs to be in a contract or in a governance organization there. Back to you, Alexander.
Yeah, I think we have time for just about one more here. What does a third-party advisor bring to the table in terms of an outsourcing engagement?
Yeah, so that's another good question, and it kind of taps into the final takeaway that I wanted to share with you. So again, you know, if you look at organizations, even though it's a complex vendor landscape, you'll find that they would do in a certain domain, for instance, in their hosting, or for instance, in their BPO finance back office, they do an outsourcing transaction, you know, at most every 5 years, you know, because contracts take anywhere between 3 and 7 years, and they might be renewed, et cetera, et cetera. So usually the procurement knowledge is quite high. There's usually some outsourcing knowledge there as well. But the really recent best practices may not be there, as well as the more, let's say, complex parts of contracts and relationships, and then I'm especially looking at the collaboration models and innovation. So that is where third-party sourcing advisors come in, such as ourselves. So what we bring to the table is recent examples, recent knowledge, and achievable frameworks there. So because we don't do it once every 5 years for a certain domain, we do it every day for similar domains. Another thing that I think is something that sourcing advisors bring to the table is experiences from other industries. So we've been doing a lot of work for insurance companies lately, and they've been really thrilled with the models we brought to the table from deals in the retail industry, because insurance companies are moving much more to a direct customer model, something the retail industry has been doing for years and years before. And that has an implication on your outsourcing models and outsourcing contracts. So, and I think the third thing that I would like to mention here is the fact that even though usually from a Quint perspective we would represent a client, we could still kind of from an independent perspective be an arbiter during either governance, negotiation, or innovation projects, be an arbiter and say, look, guys, client, what you're expecting at this moment is simply unrealistic if you look at the service provider perspective. So we know when a service provider is bringing real objections to the table, and we know when he's not really bringing real objections, but mainly creating a negotiation position. So from that perspective, I think from those things that I mentioned, I think a sourcing advisor brings absolutely added value to the table and can really speed things up when it comes to innovation and collaboration in outsourcing relationships. So back to you, Alexander.
All right. No, that was fantastic. Thanks for all the great information, Alex. At this time, I want to thank everybody for joining us early this morning, or some of us around the world, wherever time it may be where you're at. We at Quint hope that you found this session here both educational and informative. And if you would like to have more information, please check out our website, quintgroup.com, to learn more, and you can get access to some of our great white papers, blog posts, other thought-provoking pieces on outsourcing, and more. And if you have any additional inquiries after this session, please feel free to reach out to us directly, and even feel free to reach out to Alex Vandenberg directly if you'd like to discuss outsourcing. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day.